you look at the Wikipedia definition, it could be described as a process of defining your brand through what you say, what you do, the way you dress, the things you talk about, and the content you create.
Personal branding is the art of setting yourself apart from your peers.
Personal branding is how you represent yourself online or in your community.
Personal branding used to be the experience that one would get when they meet you. You know, that aura, if you will, of I met him, firm handshake, broad shoulders, carries himself in a room. With the advent of social media and everything that's happened online, let's say in the last decade, personal branding has kind of taken on this larger than life. What is it that you're trying to carry forth to a market?
Company brands, employer brands are made up of lots of individual brands. There's marketing, of course, but who are the people in that company? And when you have a name and a face to identify with in an organization, you feel closer to that company.
Well, the age-old adage that people want to do business with people they know, and with personal branding, not only can you convey what your values are and your interests are, but you convey a little bit about yourself so people can understand, you know, what are your strengths, what is it you like to do, and what are your interests, so people can find common interests. And if they can do that, it's much easier to build a relationship, and you're more likely to want to do business with them if you feel like you know something about that person.
I'm an open networker, which means that I accept invitations from anybody, I follow anybody, I friend anybody, and some people are those types of networkers and some people aren't. And once again, the world's big enough for all of us and all of our attitudes and perspectives. But I would tell you that I enjoy meeting new people and new perspectives. If I might not even agree with the perspective, but I actually like having that in my life. Whereas I have a lot of friends that their networks are, I only network with the people that I already know. Or like, take a LinkedIn example. I only link in with people that I already know. It's like, well, how do you get to know new people?
Well, as marketing director, I have to get out a lot of press releases, articles, newsletters, and when things come from a company, blank in general, people are more likely to dismiss it and go to junk mail and all. But when they are familiar with me and it's coming from me, it's more likely that'll get opened and read. And I think people are more comfortable talking to me, open to me, because they know my personal brand.
Shtick or gimmick, first of all, gimmick's dead. Don't do anything gimmicky. It just doesn't work because at one point you get found out unless that is your brand. But in most cases, people think that there's a trick or a shortcut or a way to game the system, and I've just not found that. I don't believe it to be true.
You know, unless it's tied to your business and you can convey it very simply. Other times, like, I've seen people do it and it just comes off gimmicky. You know, I think you're better off thinking about the branding elements, the colors that people remember. If you think about HubSpot, everyone knows the color. Well, first and foremost, recognize that you know, there's certain things you want to share online personally. I'm a big believer you don't share politics and religion because you'll alienate 50% of your crowd. I do occasionally will share topics on religion, but very rarely will get involved in politics. So I tell people not to do that, and do not directly sell. This is not an advertising medium. This is not a promotion medium. I wrote a blog post a while back about what to share on Twitter. I tell people 80% of what you share should be about other people and about other people's content. If you're going to do some promotion, it should be less than 20%.
Think of the objective. Think of what you're trying to actually get done by doing it. So you're going to spend time, money, and energy-ish in putting something out into a marketplace. What are you trying to what are you trying to do? What's the objective? So I think you do create kind of a checklist of like, why am I doing this? And it's okay to be really critical, like, should I invest time in this?
I think the biggest don't is don't try to be something you aren't, or not be true to yourself with it.
Don't make it all business. Share a little bit of personal stuff about yourself. Don't be selling all the time. You're just going to turn people off. Well, you're already branding yourself. The way you dress, the way you interact with people. Everything that you do in an office environment or in your day-to-day life is setting yourself apart. You are somewhat different unless you're just following everyone else, which I don't recommend. But you start branding yourself by setting yourself apart and making it known a little more often about things that you do, opinions you have, what your expertise are, what your interests are. If you just go through life without letting anyone know anything about you and you're a very private person, you're not going to brand yourself very well other than just being private.
Kind of pay attention to people that you admire and what they're doing. You know, there's people that are really good at it, like Chris Brogan, David Meerman Scott, Seth Godin. I read their books a lot when I was first starting to get into this because I've been doing marketing for years, but there's been a shift in the last few years toward online and having your own personality online, so I look to the experts.
I think at the end of the day is recognize that you can have an impact on it and that you own it and nobody else does. For a lot of people, they don't know what steps to take. There's a ton of online resources. I recommend reading a book by Dan Schwab called Me 2.0. It's written by a person who was entering the workforce and leveraged social media to demonstrate his expertise. And I would call him a wild success story. I mean, he's the head of social media for EMC right out of college because he demonstrated his knowledge and expertise around social media. So much so that he was able to convince them to let him continue to speak, run his magazine, and travel the country to speak at conferences, continuing to build his personal brand. One of my favorite quotes is, "Perfection is the enemy of the good." Just start doing something. Don't wait to write the perfect blog post. Don't wait till you got all of the branding figured out. Just start creating content and attracting people to your website. That's a hard one. I think if anything I can convey across from personal brands, that you can become authentic.
Okay, I put this out on Twitter and got some funny responses, but my word would be differentiation. That sounds like a Saturday Night Live President Bush word, but that's my word. You want to differentiate yourself.
It's kind of revolutionary because we're living in a time where it's the first time your personality can become worldwide, and it was always, and when I first started out in business, you had to climb the ranks to get where you wanted to be in business, and nowadays you get where you are being who you are. So I think it's revolutionary.
It has to be the word or the concept of genuine. I think if you were to play with a different word or concept, it would be accessible. Like, how is one consumable or accessible online or in person?